everyone. I'm your host, comedian, magician, Danny Whitson. But it's all tricks aside, because tonight we're turning the paranormal into the normal. Join me as we explore the gray areas of reality. We're going to talk all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, and see how it's all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and we are live. So if you're an experiencer yourself, or you're just plain nosy, be sure to send me your question and subscribe to the podcast. Now, get ready, because it's going to get deep. No, really, we're going to go way out there, because this is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. What's happening, my paranormal junkies? Welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, and I'm your host, Danny Whitson. Guys, and we are brought to you live by the E-United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 in New Orleans. Guys, we got a fantastic show for you this evening. I'm excited. I've known this guy a little bit for a while. Very creative person, all right? Tonight, we've got writer, director of Slash and Chill, okay? And you can also check out his movie now called TapewormZ, okay? But not only that, he's also here to share one of his paranormal experiences. So get your questions ready for today's guest, Jake Perry.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
What's happening, Jake?
Dude, I was obsessed with that intro that you had going on.
Well, I think that may be Chris or Ryan, one of those guys that put that together. So they just had me talk, and then they did all the other cool stuff.
Well, whoever did, kudos, man. That was awesome.
But I tell you what, Jake, if you don't mind, I did tell a little bit about you, but if you care to let the viewers and the listeners just know a little more about yourself.
Well, my name is Jake Perry. I'm writer-director for Slash and Chill Production. We've been around for about 10 years. Making movies, short films. We just released a feature film called TapewormZ or TapewormZ.
Sorry, I missed the Z.
That's why I did it the way I did it. It makes you think about it, because you're like, is it TapewormZ? Is it TapewormZ? Like, who knows? And I lost what I even thought it was supposed to be in the beginning. So I'll say it both ways.
The cool thing about the film too, I want to say, is it's got a very grindhouse feel to it.
Yes.
So,
and that is simple when you don't have a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at other films that are near the budget range that we were in, this is a huge endeavor, because if you watch it, it's not a horror. It's actually more of a sci-fi, which is more what I lean to anyway.
And I always found that's kind of interesting, because you don't see a lot of indie sci-fi films. At least I haven't. It's got like a sci-fi feel to it.
No, now I know why. It's hard. It was a labor of love. That is for sure. Because for those of you who don't know, I do the special effects, I do film work, I do the editing, I do everything. I try not to act. I did end up doing a cameo in this movie, and based on the fact that I don't want to be in it, I killed me really, really fast. So it was pretty amusing.
And a lot of people, have a tendency. They prefer to be behind the lens, behind the screen, behind the scenes. And a lot of your creative types do that, but let me ask you this. So what, were you always into horror? What kind of got you there, or how did this happen?
So it's always been a push and pull for me, whether it's sci-fi or whether it's horror. To me, they kind of blend. There's, aside from like the alien movies, If you look back growing up, I would watch things like Lost in Space and stuff like that, like reruns from back in the day, even then. But I was just fascinated by them. And then I was born in 1976. Let's go ahead and get that out there. So I was blessed to be able to grow up in the 80s where they created all these new materials that filmmakers could work with. And that's why you got so much over the top gore and stuff like that. And I'll never forget. Um, I was with my cousin at his girlfriend's house, and they were watching this movie that just blew me away. The gore that was in it, I was floored. And the movie was called Dawn of the Dead, the original.
Oh
And
yeah.
just the stuff that was going on, I couldn't believe that people were able to make it, because I was the kid that in kindergarten I was putting glue on my hand and using toilet paper and red.
Peeling it off.
Yeah, I was that guy, always trying to figure out how to do stuff, and that's really what evolved into me making movies. I always wanted to do it, but I grew up really poor. I was always saying, we should make that movie. At whatever idea, random. If you've seen my stuff, they are random. But I would always say that, and then I was a guitarist for 20 something years, and then my wrists and elbows started going out. I couldn't play like that, and I remember saying to my friends, "Oh, we should make that." Talking about a movie that had all the worst horror tropes, and something lit a fire in me. I said, "Okay, we're gonna do it this time." That was on a Tuesday. I bought a camera. We started filming on Saturday, and that is Serial Killer Alien Werewolves. You can find that on YouTube, and it's a lot of fun.
Serial Killer Alien Werewolves.
Yes, and it's cereal like breakfast cereal.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, you know what, man, and I say this all the time, and I will die on this hill, but I think the best horror movies, were made in the early 80s, even in the 80s, in my opinion. I'm a big Friday 13th fan, just growing up as a child watching those. And then I look back and some of them weren't even that scary, but to me it was just such a good, like, I got the critters back here, and they
Yeah, I have
live,
that same one.
yeah, I've got critters and they live. And these were movies to me that were just, amazing, that they don't make it any close to making anymore, and like also a big fan of the Grindhouse. There was something, so I think there's something to a movie about that. There's the time that it's made, that it can't be recaptured. You know what I mean? And just because something's old doesn't mean it needs to be redone either.
Oh, agreed. 100% agreed.
I mean, it's okay to keep coming out with new stuff, keep being creative, but you don't have to like, I guess, aren't they getting ready to redo The Omen?
Yeah.
I think the original, just, you can't,
I think what it is, man, is really, I mean, because if you look at the indie scene, there's tons of creativity out there. People doing stuff that's off the wall, which is what you had during the 80s and even the early 90s. People weren't scared. They were just playing, they were experimenting. Hey, let's see what we can do. And Hollywood has stifled that. And that's why they're going back and remaking all of this stuff, is because all they have to worry about is money coming in. And guys like us, I mean, let's be honest, we'll complain about remakes of the movies, but who's going to watch it?
Absolutely.
100%. Even if it's just to complain about it later, we're going to watch it.
Well, I want to reach over here and say, hey, Julie Evans, welcome back. Thank you for hopping in here. If you got any questions for Jake, Jake is he's a horror filmmaker, director, and writer, and he's also got a paranormal experience he's going to share with us before we get out of here. But thank you for hopping on, Julie. It's great to see you again. But now, Jake, and I'm totally with you. It's I'm in that world. That's where I exist. I have to work in that world, and creativity doesn't put butts in the seats, unfortunately. and you know, they want the same planed out, and Hollywood is doing all these stupid. Most of your writers in Hollywood suck. Let's just be completely, you know, honest. You
Yeah.
know, so
Unreal dialogue, things that would
yeah,
never happen, and that's something that if people would focus more on the indie side, like look at Terrifier. That movie is done really well. Personally, I love the first one. The second
yeah,
one, it was a lot bigger and a lot better, but the first one holds a special part in my heart, just because it was just an indie filmmaker making a movie that he saw, and that was it. I mean, we all see them, or at least I do. I see the movie before I make the movie, if that
yeah,
makes sense. And it's just
absolutely.
how to bring it out. But
You get it. You get it. You know, you have this in your head. You have this movie. The now I will say this. I want to give some quick shout outs to some horror films that I just recently watched.
ooh,
The it's I enjoyed Late Night with the Devil, and this isn't indie. This is new. Now I kind of enjoyed the style that it went,
I didn't
and
see
you haven't seen it yet.
that.
Recommend it. And I was maybe a little late on board for this one, but I finally watched Hereditary.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you this. Now, I did have some issues with it, you know. I did have some issues with it, but probably on the, it was definitely different than what I had seen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I fully I can get on board with that. Personally, was not a fan of the movie.
Yeah.
It was well made. It just wasn't my kind of movie, really.
Yeah. I think I mean, some things were a little long, you know,
Yeah.
me. And I had, and because of the, you know, joys of social media, the one big disturbing thing in the movie I was already aware of. Now, it was hilarious. My wife wasn't, and I knew it was coming. And when it happened, I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious." She didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? So,
Oh, that's great.
but I will tell you this: I was already kind of expecting to be disturbed somehow because I watched Midsummer, and you know, it was that one right there, the whole cult thing that could actually really happen, and there was something gross. I don't know what it was about this, but there was something about on Midsummer about it being in a bright, sunny. You know how a lot of horror movies are dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This was bright and sunny and beautiful.
Yeah, that's way more disturbing.
It was way disturbing, dude. After watching that, I felt weird for a few days. I was like, okay, I gotta take a shower. I don't know what's going on. Julie says she used to watch horror films a lot, but not for a while. Yes. Well, Julie, you got to check out Jake's film. You know, he's got a film out there, TapewormZ. So it's got a grindhouse feel to it. So it's a gory one though. It's a gory one. So Julie, if you like it, it is a gory one, correct, Jake?
Oh yeah, yeah. I put lots of gore in there, but I don't take a heavy feel to my movies. It's more I'm going to give you some nasty gore, and then I'm going to make you laugh about it.
So maybe there's some absolutely. If you can laugh, then I love that. Absolutely love that.
I'm more Army of Darkness, Evil Dead kind of style of movies.
I love that.
That was a huge inspiration.
I love that. Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so growing up, you know, like you said, you were interested in doing the horror movies. Was there anything that happened to you as a kid, like experience ghost or anything that may have?
Okay, I told you I had one major thing that messed with me. And it sounds ridiculous. So if you don't
well,
believe,
first of all, know this, Jake. You can't get ridiculous on this show, brother. Trust me.
Well, I was 16 and I helped my friend move her mom to Austin, Texas. We're from Odessa, Texas, which I'm in Knoxville now, but at the time, that was about 7 hours. So we helped them move, and then we decided to take these back roads back to Odessa. And we go through this little town called Goldthwaite, Texas. If you've ever been there, you probably don't know you've been there because it's about this big. But in the middle of the night, we stopped because we just had to get out and stretch, and we stopped in a Safeway parking lot. And I noticed that I really like old houses, old construction, stuff like that. And there's an old house right across the street from the Safeway on the main road, but it's all boarded up. But it looked like it was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's real broken down, but it was cool. So I enjoyed talking about that. And then she had a Polaroid. You remember when those were the thing in the early 90s? So she wanted to take a Polaroid. She takes a picture of me standing across the street from this boarded up house. And I kid you not, when that Polaroid developed, there were lights in the windows. It was not boarded up, and it looked like a new house. And there were, when I say lights, it was like candlelight. It was very orange type light, and it was like we could see people in there. I know it sounds crazy. We dropped the picture, jumped in the car, and I've never been back to Goldthwaite, Texas.
Oh my gosh, that's so weird.
Yeah, it was really strange.
Where you and you said how long ago was this?
Probably 92, 93.
So I mean, you were a kid. This was
16.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, like I said, I think I'm a firm believer in the paranormal, and with exactly like crossing time and energy, stuff you never know. It could be, I think I believe in the parallel universes. There's other dimensions, things going out there, and the who knows? Maybe you may have picked up a moment, a glance in time.
It was so crazy, and I can't say.
Do you guys still got the picture?
Huh?
Do you have the picture?
No, we dropped it. I mean, it freaked us out. We were in the car and out of that town faster than you could take a breath. It was terrifying to both of us.
So oh man, that is creepy. That's definitely creepy. Anytime, and I don't know, it seems like there's something even more like with the Polaroid pictures, because I know there's some really good evidence out there of people that have captured with Polaroid pictures, and it was even so much more believable with the Polaroid than it is now with the digital.
Yeah, there was another thing that I saw as an adult and a Polaroid. Was my youngest son. He just turned 15, but he was 2, maybe 3, and he was with his grandparents staying at their house, which was in the older part of town. So it was an older house. And then they sent me a picture, and when I looked at the picture, and this is another one, I can't explain it, so it sounds ridiculous, but when I looked at the picture, he was standing next to his kiddie bed for the grandkids, and underneath there was this face amidst everything. And it years later, that movie Sinister came out, and that face reminded me of that face that was under there. It's not exactly, but it was enough that just looking at the picture gave me a sense of dread, and it freaked me out. I didn't want my son in that room anymore, any of my kids.
Well, when you look at some of the most famous pictures, like the Amityville Horror, there's a picture of the Amityville Horror House where it's clearly the kid. You can see one of the children looking out the door, out of the bedroom door, and the story of the Amityville, about the O's and the murder that happened there. And I mean, sometimes you'll look at the picture at first, and you're like, well, this almost looks too good to be true. But the time that it was taken, it would have been extremely difficult to do any type of. I didn't even know if the technology existed to be able to, mess around with it and play around with it. So, very, and then there's, when you look back, that's some of my favorite type of evidence is some of the early photos before digital. I wish I knew the name of this one in particular, but there's actually a photo. I mean, it probably, you may have seen it. If anybody has, if you're a fan of any paranormal whatsoever, you've definitely seen this. I'm hearing something on the sound. I want to make sure is that me? Can you hear that, Jake?
I don't hear it, but I'm on my phone, so it doesn't.
Okay. I don't know if it's his mic or what, but it's kind of, I hear a little bit of static. But it's actual photo. It's a family photo at the I guess they're at the kitchen table, and then in the background, there's a body hanging upside down.
Oh,
do you know what I'm talking from the ceiling?
Uh-huh. Yep, I've seen that. It's been a long time, but I've seen that picture.
And it's very, you look at that and you're just like, wow, so it makes you wonder whenever you look at the when you look at the technology, I don't know, I guess how a camera works, and is it able to tap in and see something else in moments in time that we can't? I don't know, but there's something, it's kind of magical.
I mean, scientifically, they say that all times exist at the same time. So, I mean, who's to say? I'm smart enough to know I may not 100% believe in ghosts, but I also don't not believe in ghosts, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I've had experiences, so, I can't write them off, and I've tried to explain, and I'm a very crack the code kind of person. I know how to pull the eye. I know all the tricks. I know how to do it. And whenever there's something I can't explain, the best thing that I can come up with is, that's interesting.
Yes.
Because I don't know. I don't know the answer. Like we've had plenty of people on this show that believe that it's just, interdimension happening at the same time, something else. And just like you said, sometimes we like to think that time is this straight line from here to there, but actually it's a flat plane and happening all at once.
Yeah.
So, and who knows what could be going on? Just like with that picture, you may have just tapped in on something that was happening in another time, Yeah. But
the Polaroid went back in time.
So, but now, do you know of like any, because you being a horror film expert, correct? Sci-fi horror film expert. One of the most scariest movies I think of all time is Alien.
Oh yeah.
Definitely one of the most, and that's something that we tend to talk a lot about on this show. It's well, first of all, it's an amazing time to be alive, especially if you do believe in, which I believe 100% in the UFO phenomenon that's going on. I follow it a lot closer than what normal people, and I know our viewers do too. But I don't know, Jake. I'm sure you've heard like where Congress have trying to get disclosure right now.
Oh yeah, I follow all of that.
Well, one of the great things is with all the everybody walks around with a video camera, and I said this probably about 10, 15 years ago, because I was on the fence. I went from full-blown atheist to, not believing anything to now I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person now,
Right.
And I believe in another realities. There's more to reality than what we're aware of. And the thing with the UFO phenomenon, it's now that people have cameras attached, everywhere, we're starting to get more and more and more evidence.
Well, yeah. I mean, you kind of have to. And anybody that thinks that we're alone in the universe is just vain, man. That we're that special. Come on, man. You ever seen how many stars are up there?
Yeah. Well, we're definitely not special. I don't think so. I think we're idiots, but we're not special. Well, here we got a question from Julie Evans. All the way from I do believe Julie's from the UK, if I remember correctly, Julie. But she's got a great question for you, Jake. It says, yes, she agrees. Where do you get your inspiration regarding your horror films, Jake? Do you things pop in your head and you build on it?
That is a really, really great question. I pull from a lot of sources, and my brain doesn't work like a normal person, I don't think. Uh, so I have one. It's one of my most popular short films that's called The Killer Sandwich. Yes, Sandwich. That came from a buddy of mine, Eric Exton, on Facebook. He's also a filmmaker in Oklahoma. He walked out and there's a sandwich on top of his garage. Just randomly. And this guy lives in the woods away from everything, but there's a sandwich on top. And so he's very, let's just say, articulate. He says a lot. He tells stories about the smallest thing, and it's hilarious. So he goes out and sees it, and then he writes about it. Goes back out the second day, still up there, so he writes about it. Goes back out there the third day, it's gone. And he's like, oh, well, that's over. Well, my brain runs with it's a killer sandwich, and it was stalking him the whole time. And so I got that pull just from some random sandwich on a guy's roof. Tapeworms actually came, it started off as a fake trailer and then became a short film, which was Tapeworm 2. And then we had enough call and got distribution on it that we made TapewormZ, which is the full-length feature film. But that all started off, we were originally casting for we were going to do a fake slasher trailer for Texas Frightmare Weekend. And while we're sitting there, my oldest daughter, one of her friends was there, and I was like, I thought you had work. And he's like, no, I called in, so I got fired. And I was like, what'd you call in with? He said, I called in with a tapeworm. That was it. So I made the whole thing about that. And the funny thing is, if you watch the movie, it's nothing like a tapeworm. And I call it out in there. It's more like a lamprey than anything, which oddly scientists have recently discovered that the lamprey is one of our oldest ancestors that actually had a spine. So it was key to the evolution of even humans. Like I said,
wow.
But I actually delved very much into how the worm could have. It goes all the way back into Viking lore, and like I built an entire myth of. It is. I put way too much thought into stuff, man.
Well, I just want to say this. No. I want to say this. Okay, you guys listening and you guys watching, if you are in a creative type, okay, and this only happens in a creative type's mind. I know because this is me too. You will find something, and you will find the brilliancy in your creative stuff, and you will think and obsess and know everything that no one else in this world will know on that topic.
100%.
Now, and I feel sorry for my wife because I talk her, I have this stupid idea, and then I'll talk her head off about it over and over and over and over. But it just brings so much joy to your heart, does it not? You get so much joy out of this. I think that, of course, you get inspiration and little moments of things that happen. It's like the universe wants you to make this movie about a killer sandwich or a tapeworm. And I don't know, maybe the killer sandwich sounds like, guys, I'm just going to be honest, I'd watch that. I would totally.
Yeah, everybody loves that one. That one is so popular. They're like, make it into a feature film. And I'm like, no. It was perfect, that 5 minutes. If you do more than that, you're just going to ruin it.
Absolutely.
So I refuse.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's do this, Jake. I tell you what, this has been fun so far. I love talking with him, man. Very interesting stuff. We're going to cut to the commercial break. We're going to give a shout out to the sponsors. If you guys get a second, run, grab you a killer sandwich, come back, and listen to some more stories here with Jake Perry. We'll be right back after these messages, guys.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
Business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. And if you're just now tuning in, we've been talking with writer director from Slash and Chill Productions, Jake Perry. All right, Jake. Now, I have to ask because we talked about some of your very creative, unique horror / sci-fi type films. I definitely want to say, guys, if you want something different. And maybe if you want a little bit of a chuckle too, because Jake kind of intertwines some comedy in some of this stuff, you got to check out, what was it, Killer Sandwich?
Killer Sandwich.
Is it Killer Sandwich?
Yep.
And TapewormZ. And what was the other one, the werewolf one? I want to check that out.
Oh, that's Serial Killer Alien Werewolves. And on my website, I have a lot of these videos.
Awesome.
You can't
so before we get out of here,
obviously.
Okay, so here's the thing. So as a creative, your windows and doors are always open. Let me ask you this, because you said you do like sci-fi, and with the actual UFO phenomenon that's going on right now, have you seen any inspiration to maybe make a Wi-Fi? I mean, not a Wi-Fi, but a sci-fi film, a Wi-Fi film.
I mean, TapewormZ is sci-fi, but going much beyond what I was able to do there without just a ton of money, that's why everybody stays away from sci-fi. Horror's I don't want to say easy to make because that's going to sound like it's taking away, but it's far easier than sci-fi. Sci-fi, you have a much more picky type person paying attention to the details there. Where on a slasher or regular horror, all you care about is how much splatter you got for the most part. And which I love those. I'm one of the biggest proponents of those movies. But when it comes to sci-fi, I'll nitpick a lot more. Um, there was, I can't remember what the movie was, but they held up their arm and they dialed, and then this little screen came up right here, right? But they moved their arm and the screen didn't move, and that bugged me like I could never explain why didn't it move?
Yeah. And well, what do you think? Like, we look at movies, like I've had some people, and this is kind of on the conspiracy thing, and we talk conspiracies on this show all the time. We've had some people believe like Hollywood sometimes is kind of slowly introducing us to reality.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just leaking it to us so it's less of a shock once it gets here.
I mean, like, like I've even mentioned stuff like, like remember the movie Contagion?
Yeah.
Wasn't it kind of interesting that they made that movie and it came out and, then there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
Shortly years after, I mean, everyone does like to joke around about like how the Simpsons are predicting the future, but didn't they have an episode where they had something similar to like what just happened with the Trump assassination, attempt,
Yeah,
it
they
makes
also had the corona outbreak, and they said where Wuhan, China, and all that stuff.
yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you could only look at chaos theory so much before you actually have to say, okay, there's a pattern here, and there's a reason that it's happening, and that reason is not. I can't say that it's nefarious as if you think about it in the 1940s. If aliens had come and landed on the White House lawn, people would have melted mentally. I mean, that would have been the most shocking thing. If it happened now, I mean, look at the reaction we got when they announced, hey, this is a real thing. And everybody's like, okay. Well,
exactly.
What?
It's like, I mean, there was people who just accept, okay, aliens are real. All right, let's look at this TikTok video.
But then people still argue it. I'm like, that's the news right there. Just said that, man.
I mean, if you can, and here's the thing, man. I wish people. I have heard some stuff, Jake, that would just blow people's minds, and I have no reason not to believe these people that have told me, their experiences and their stories. I'm like, why would they lie about this? Why, So and whenever you continuously hear the same story, like alien abductions and these same beings, it's hard to dismiss and say, yeah, there's something here.
Yeah, and interesting to that point, in 2010, I think it was. It might have been 2011. I moved to Roswell, New Mexico. And
interesting.
Yeah, and so they have a great alien museum there. It's kind of gimmicky now, but there's a lot of really good information in there. But I met a couple of the people. I was running a car dealership. A couple of the people that were kids back then, and you couldn't possibly convince them they didn't see exactly what they said they saw. 100% talking to them, even as I mean, they were old now. But they would tell you the exact same story that you had seen on the news before they released it, or before they released the weather balloon stuff.
And this in Roswell.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because that crash happened in what, 1946? Yeah, and that's serial killer, alien, werewolves. I even mentioned it. I mentioned several. Yeah, like aliens is kind of my thing.
Well, and I think here, hold on one second. I'm going to change mics on this real quick just to see this eliminate any static. Hold on one second here, Jake.
Okay.
Can you hear me, man?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. I don't know what I think it was something on my mic in there, so I do apologize. Well, and I think there's no denying it. I think now, but and we've talked about this. Like I think they are slowly releasing us to the public more and more information. I think there's a reality out there that we can't even fathom.
Mhm.
As and it's and like with Roswell, it's hard. I try not to be. I want to keep things like rational as possible I can, but I'm like, it's starting to be rational to believe this and to believe that.
Yeah.
And when you think not to believe it and denying, just to walk around thinking, we've got these things flying around in our sky, and and then we've had whistleblowers, like David Grush and people come forward and say, and the one thing that I always find interesting is a term they always use, Jake, is they call it a non-human intelligence.
Yes.
Now, and the one thing that bothers me about that is, now granted, that could be anything. Hell, that could be dolphins up there flying,
Right.
spacecraft, but then it goes back to the side of what if it's just a high tech type of AI that we can't control. I mean, but then now David Grush has also used the word biologics, so that kind of clears that up too. But
Right.
there's theories that it could be us from the future. There's theories
Mhm.
that Greys could be. I hear a lot of stuff about Greys on this show. That Greys could be us from the future, or could something. But have you ever thought about what's happening right now? Basically, what I'm getting at is the phenomenon of the UFO stuff that's happening right now for a future project film.
I would like to delve more into it. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that because with TapewormZ, I mentioned that there's hunters that come from space. And I also mentioned how Viking lore tied into all of this. Well, the truth be known, and you kind of find out later on in the story, the reason they don't look like aliens is because they're humans that left here in Viking times chasing what Viking lore knows as Jormungandr, which is the world serpent. Well, I've created the mythos around the world serpent to be the worms that were coming, and we fought them off from here, and then it's circled back around and they've come here. So the Jormungandr was really the worm.
Okay.
So I kind of tied all that into this story, actually, as best I could, without the budget. But ideally, like I do comedy horror now. Ultimately, I would love to do more like real sci-fi, but I've got a long way to go until I can afford that.
Yeah, budget wise. Now,
Yeah.
there's some, I do a lot. I've done a lot of comedy. I was in WJHCAM,
Mhm.
comedy horror movie. I got to play Brother Sparks.
Yeah.
Um,
Hadouken.
yeah, Hadouken. That was a fun part to get to play. And there's a very funny. I've done some sketch comedy video with the Knox by Night Productions, Knox by Night band guys, and we actually have a very funny one that you can go check out on YouTube. It's called Star Quest, and it's a sci-fi film. It's a kick off the old Star Trek, but
Nice.
it's a pretty funny one. If you get a chance, check it out. It's called Star Quest. I'm in it, so it's pretty funny. But sci-fi is much more difficult to film, I could imagine. And I'm kind of bummed though, because don't get me, as serious as I take the topic of alien abductions, the UAP phenomenon, paranormal, I'm a little disappointed though, but it doesn't surprise me the way Hollywood is. But how come we don't have a great alien movie out right now? I mean, if you want to talk about, because it's such a hot topic, people are paying attention now to this actual topic. I think it would make a lot of money.
Well, and that I
It's
feel
like no
like
one take advantage of it.
yeah, you have to be more you have to be more creative to come out with a fresh story when it comes to that, because
That's
I
true.
mean, you can only do Mars Attacks so many times, and what was it? Somebody redid Plan 9 from Outer Space not too long ago. And they did. Have they not released that that new Alien movie yet?
I just saw the previews for that.
That looks
But
sick. But
it does. It does.
But that's
The
very
trailer
far
looks great.
different. But I feel like they're too worried to take any risks in Hollywood right now. I don't know if that's because of the strikes that were going on or any of that stuff. But it's like they're only putting out stuff they know is going to hit. I mean, when's the last time you saw a movie actually flop out of Hollywood?
I mean, yeah, they're definitely being real safe as possibly, and we could be a result of the writers. Now, with the whole deal with the writers, the writers are afraid with ChatGPT these days replacing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I could totally see that as being a fear. The one thing, but to me, okay, think of the Alien movie that we grew up. That was the big thing when we were, in high school and kids was Independence Day, the first Independence Day.
Yep.
And it was such a great, fun movie to watch. And, I mean, it was, I loved it when it first came out. Now, they made the sequel. I don't know how big I don't even remember even watching the sequel. But
the first one was so great, I didn't want to infect it.
But then but then let's go back and look at one of the best UFO alien movies was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I thought,
going to go there.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's gold, and I mean, how come not that? I don't think we should do a reboot of that, which they probably will. They'll probably try to do a reboot, but we need something like that. We need a movie that's. It's almost because we love end of the world movies, guys. Let's face it, we love it.
Yes,
but and don't get me wrong. There's been some bangers, baby. I thought Contact was a banger and makes a lot of good sense. Yeah. I think what other UFO? What was the last one? That
they
I
did
saw?
That movie Arrival. And I
Arrival.
think that one did very good.
Was that the Charlie Sheen one?
No, that was Contact. Wasn't that Contact?
I think that
Arrival was where they went into the ship and she had to start communicating with them because they weren't coming out of the ship.
Well, what was interesting about that? I will say that the thing that I enjoyed about that was that a lot of times when we do think about, biologics, aliens, we always picture them as a human structured, I can't remember what the scientific term is, but head, arms, legs, like us. And a lot of times, I will say this, scientifically, to exist on this planet, we're not really structured correctly for the gravity, what human beings are. We stand up straight, and this is horrible.
Yep.
Everything else you notice crawls on all fours. That's another thing that makes me wonder if actually we're really from here. Okay, so yeah,
I mean Anunnaki explains all that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I could go off on that
one. There's some. We can go deep down that road. Like I'm not 100%. I was actually on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and I brought that up. I was like, I think actually we're a science experiment. From we had extraterrestrials or aliens come here, and we're their science experiment, and they're just kind of checking us out from a petri dish kind of thing.
Yep.
But
you know what? Speaking of that, okay, since I think this is the right place to mention this. So going on that mindset that we were seeded essentially and put here, which I've personally believed for a long time, but they found a new thing called dark oxygen. Have you found that yet?
No.
Okay, this is awesome because this is not science fiction. This is science fact. So there are these little nodules, I guess you would call them, that they found trillions of them in the ocean, in these trenches. Go Google it when we're done. Dark oxygen. But these little rocks, they're a mix of, what was it, nickel. There's like 5 different types of metals, but that means that the surface has a voltage of 0.95 or as high as 0.95 on each one of these rocks. So what they're doing is they're splitting the oxygen from the water molecules and creating oxygen. So if you take into consideration that we were supposed to have oxygen in order to evolve originally, well, where did plants come from? Because we believed that plants are what created all of the oxygen, but you kind of got to have a flip-flop there. It's a chicken or the egg kind of thing. But with those little rocks that are down there, and like I said, there's trillions and trillions of them, those could have created the right amount of oxygen for life to start.
That's interesting. And it's called dark oxygen?
Fascinating. Huh?
Dark oxygen.
Yes. I was like, dark oxygen sounds ridiculous, but when you go read the papers on it, like I said, I'm a science nerd.
No, I am too. I love that stuff. I have not seen that though. I will definitely check that out. Google it.
Yeah, it was just finalized in the paper like 2-3 weeks ago.
And you know, that's one thing a lot of people don't think of. You know, this is something I was thinking of the other day. I saw this picture, and we've all seen the picture of the fish crawling out of the water.
Yes.
You know, and I've always been a fan of evolution. I thought, you know, this makes sense. But then there's some things that don't make sense. And then it takes me back to the paranormal way of thinking, or like where we seated here. You know, there's all these other theories that could possibly happen. And then I'm like, it's funny how we just accept that a fish grew legs and said, you know, the heck with it. Let's go to the plant. and we're 100% like, okay, Charles Darwin, that's cool. We'll go with it. But then if we think that another alien species came here and, like, you know, I don't know, maybe, you know, didn't experiment with an ape or something, and boom, here we are. I mean, that's not far-fetched either.
Yeah, there's still the missing link. I mean, and going into the Anunnaki, you know, they supposedly split their DNA with the native primates or the native ape culture and created these humans. Well, now we've got everything leading up to it, and we've got everything after it. What happened here?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Now you've got stories that are as old as human history telling you this is what happened. And I mean, the Sumerian tablets that tell so much stuff. Sorry, I will get started on that one. I don't go for a minute.
Well, no, wait. You know what? That's interesting stuff. And those tablets right there are just mind blowing. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's amazing. Like when you think about it, like as intelligent as we are, how come we don't know? I mean, it's like we get to a certain point to where it's like no one remembers anything.
Yeah.
Why? It's so odd. So
who's to say there weren't multiple civilizations here before us, and we just
absolutely. You know, I tell people, imagine the people in history who have existed that you never knew or will never know about. But I tell you what, Jake, this is all, we could go down a rabbit hole, and man, we could talk forever on this, but I want to do this. First of all, it's been so fun having you on here, man. And, you know, like I love talking to another creative person, especially, and with your creepy paranormal experience. I think you had an experience where you may had some type of time loop, some type of interaction, maybe in another time and space, in the same space, occupying the same space. But before we get out of here, where can people see Killer Sandwich? Where can people see TapewormZ? Where can they learn more about Jake Perry and his movies?
All right, so TapewormZ is only available. Well, I say only available. It was only available on physical until today. I put it up for streaming on my website. You can purchase a digital copy and watch it there. It will be other places soon, but I can't release that info yet. As far as Killer Sandwich, stuff like that, I have several on my website it's just /andchill.com. But there are several videos down at the bottom. One is serial killer alien werewolves. There's tons, man. I've got well over a dozen. I've got killer puppets, killer sandwiches. I do one called The Shed that's actually like a heavy, serious short film that's killer. I did a stop animation that I will never do again. That was the worst month of my life, but it's hilarious.
Well, dude,
so
and all this is at the website /andchillproductions.com.
Just /andchill.com.
Oh, just even better, just /andchill.com.
So made it real easy for you.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, Jake, thank you so much for coming on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Next time we need to get you back on, and I want to go down that rabbit hole, talk about those tablets. Let's get nerdy in here, man.
I am down, my friend. This was fun.
All right, brother. You take care, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. You too.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for jumping in. Lisa, Julie, thank you for your questions. You guys were great. Guys, if you have not done so, head over to Patreon. Show us some love at Heed the World /Patreon. Make a little small donation. Only $4. It'll get you access to some interesting articles at experiencersupport.org. Our very own Ryan Stacy will break down some investigations, let you know what he thinks. If you guys haven't done so, be sure to check out Ryan's podcast on Mondays at 5 p.m., The Skeptical Sleuth. He really breaks stuff down for you and kind of leaves it up to you to kind of make your mind up as well. If you guys have not done so, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends about Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. All the subscriptions and viewers, that helps us out a lot. So definitely spread the word, let them know. And we're anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're streaming everywhere, and we're always streaming live here on YouTube. And if you guys have not done so, show me some love. Yes. Head over to Instagram at Super Magic Boy on Instagram. I post where I'm doing shows at. I may be coming to your town soon. You never know. I would love to see you guys come out to one of my shows. Or you can give me a follow at DannyWhitsonMagicandComedy.com. I would love to see you guys pop up to the show. Give me a follow. And like always, we are broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Network, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Guys, this has been so much fun. I can't wait to talk to you guys next Tuesday. All right, that does it for this episode of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. A big shout out for tonight's awesome guest, and a bigger shout out for everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And like always, be sure to stay curious, heed the world, and keep the paranormal normal. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.